As if being overworked and underpaid wasn't bad enough, these greedy billionaires now want our bills to go up. To think I thought scalping grocery prices was the extent of their greed, but these corporate executives really can't leave any stone unturned. Just this past week, nearly 50,000 Lake Tahoe residents are now being dropped by their power companies as those companies redirect their power to the massive billionaire-owned data center instead. In just 2024 alone, 135 hyperscale data centers were added, and as of January 2026, we now have over 2,300 active data centers in the United States, with 1,600 plus planned or in construction. What's a hyperscale data center, you ask? Well, unlike the data storage in the basement of an office building, these suckers can be over 224 acres in size, or 450 American football fields.
Giant warehouses are popping up across the US, more than 2 every week.
Speaking of America, we now have 37% of the world's data centers, and each and every one of them siphons resources from the local lands they are built upon. Whether that's water for cooling or electricity for their power, the locals' quality of life suffers as they lose access to basic household necessities. And to add insult to injury, our utility bills, yes, meaning you and me, not the company, they go up.
If you live in any of these states, your electric bill is higher this summer. It's not because of anything you did. You're paying more because the world's biggest tech companies are building so many data centers.
Like to the guy who commented overworked and be careful what you wish for, bro, since we're getting railed pretty hard by corporations right now. Over the past 5 years, coincidentally, every single time a data center is built in a surrounding area, the locals experience an average increase of 267% on their electricity bills. That's not a small number. Remember, normal inflation is just 3% a year, so they should have only gotten 15% higher bills in 5 years. Man, I wonder where the other 252% is coming from. The suspiciously 450 football-sized warehouse might be the cause. I don't know, guys. We live in the internet era. People can literally log on to their power company's online portal or even check their physical mailed letters, then see last year's payments, then compare it to the year when a data center was built near them, and boom, they can spot the difference and see these massive increases. It doesn't take a Harvard study for us to know this is a thing, but just in case it does, there are multiple websites that all use the exact 267% stat, meaning that we know.
Want us to stop building our electrical grid. Which adversary would want that? I got my guys to go a deep dig into the IP addresses, and here's what we found out. This is fascinating. We found 2 cells inside of Utah. Elevate Strategies. Gabby Finlayson. Gabby, what are you doing? And who's paying you?
Then when we don't fall for their brainwashing, they have the audacity to dox a normal citizen's IP address, call her out by name, declare she's a foreign spy, despite Kevin O'Leary being a foreigner who is trying to put a data center in Utah.
Can you be quiet and let our citizens hear what needs to be said, please?
As they voted to move forward with a controversial data center proposal backed by celebrity Canadian businessman Kevin O'Leary.
These boomers still think they're slick, like it's the 1970s Soviet era, where as long as you controlled television, you had the public masses on your side. But we're not so gullible anymore. Any individual now can post something online. It doesn't have to go through some filtered state-owned media or television channel. Now, unfortunately, anyone being able to post on social media does still mean anyone. So billionaire investment firms realized this and started buying out a bunch of YouTube channels. That way they can force them to make overly clean and soulless content straight off an assembly line, which pushes out grassroots creators like myself and many others who actually want to just work independently and not have a corporate agenda. Like, genuinely, it's still insanely dystopian how far billionaire greed goes this day. This absolutely lines with the topic of this video, because it's sad to me that they really want every single penny from every single revenue stream. It's so disgusting that they are now buying businesses or individuals. Then these people don't even disclaim that they're owned by private equity firms, some of which are literally owned by multi-trillion entities. Like, I do want to address this situation because it absolutely pertains to this video topic, and it's close to my heart as someone who's been creating on this platform for almost a decade. There's something magical and hope-inducing about any one of you who are watching. You can start yapping, editing, and posting about a topic, and someday make it big and successful, and I'm surrounded by plenty of other creators who started off doing just that. Sure, luck is absolutely a factor, but being self-made is part of the magic of YouTube. That's why they used to say, broadcast yourself. There's something so detached and soulless about these industry plants, that's what I'm gonna call them because that's what they are, who are funded by multi-billion, sometimes even trillionaire investment firms who can just pop up, push smaller creators out, pump out content way faster, utilize resources and connections far wider than what the normal creator would have access to. And this slowly makes this platform feel more like cable TV or state-owned media instead of something that used to celebrate individuals, independence, and self-made businesses. People watch you because they like you. Speaking of which, thank you guys so much for getting me to 900,000 followers. It is actually unbelievable. The dream of hitting 1 million, I genuinely didn't think would ever be possible in my lifetime. But Unc might actually be able to pay off all his cancer debt at this rate. Like, genuinely, you guys have changed my life, and I love and respect every single one of you guys for tuning in weekly to my Epidemic Slop. And subscribe if you're new here, if you enjoy this Epidemic Slop. Anyways, and there are many other channels like this who people love them for them. I'm not against companies using YouTube if they are a small business, right? Just trying to get some of their products out. I'm not some loser who's just going to be jealous of people who are wealthy, successful, or rich even. Like, listen, if you were to make $1 a second, you would be a millionaire in just 12 days. However, it'd still take 31 years to become a billionaire. And now picture this. Actual multi-hundred billionaires exist in this world who accumulated it much faster than 31 years. So let that sink in. They don't just have 1 billion or 10 billion, they literally can have hundreds of billion, and they got it faster than the 31-year example, meaning they're making multiple dollars a second.
Now, if you were to ask me, should billionaires even exist? I'm definitely on the no side. Like, I can't even fathom what you do with all that money. I don't think just because they'd have to pay their employees some more that they'd say fuck it and bail out on their company. Before some people try to make it some political issue, no, both sides use them to their advantage. And I think what really ramped up the talk about billionaires online in the past couple of years is how much they've changed.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would. Yes.
Okay.
But.
If you'd let me make this point, please. Including the perspective of the immigrant, who has so often been the person who came to this country and made it better.
What? Eric, put down the crack pipe, snap back to reality. What? Pardon? Comparing AI to immigrants, huh?
So each time myself or many of my fellow Americans or other small business owners, even other millionaires, if they're complaining about multi-hundred billionaires, it's not senseless hate for wealth. I get that companies do need to exist, especially if they pay their employees well, because even Henry Ford wasn't as cartoonishly evil. Quite the opposite. He actually wanted his employees to actually buy the products they made.
In 1914, Henry Ford recognized that a workforce unable to afford the very products it built, or the time to enjoy them, was a threat to both business and economic growth, and demonstrating what a capitalistic economy could produce when workers were treated as participants in prosperity rather than disposable inputs.
I get that at the end of the day, millionaires are still needed as a baseline because they do invent great products that push humankind forward, like planes, like cars, like motorbikes, like smartphones that we use, and computers too. I get that there are gonna be companies that are going to have a couple $100 million worth even, but there's something so jarring about a person, not a company, a person who has billions, multi-hundred billions worth, right? Let's not get cute here. That's not even remotely close to the same level of wealth that you and I would earn in our lifetimes. And the saddest part is, they still want more. Nothing we give will ever satisfy their greed. That's why they move into every corner of every single space we have, whether it's physical, online, or otherwise. Which is why if you truly love freedom and are a big fan of liberty, then these punks moving into our countrysides and backyards and making us pay for their electricity bills should enrage you. When it comes to this topic, there is no right versus left, blue versus red, or whatever they try to divide us with. The reality is, it's just us versus them. The American people versus the elites. Because my fellow Americans who are exercising their First Amendment right to protest these data centers are heroes. They are not domestic terrorists, and I refuse to label them as such, no matter what those loser billionaires or politicians try to say. Those are my fellow Americans out there, freely speaking their mind, which is something that should be dearly protected.
Investing trillions of dollars, selling out every piece of land in this country for AI data centers to help us. But now, I think the cracks are starting to show. I think the truth is starting to leak out, and, well, don't worry, BlackRock has solutions for that. Larry Fink made a really cool statement about how they're going to protect it from the domestic terrorists that might not want AI data centers, which I think is a really cool label to be slapping on normal, average working people that just don't want to see their energy bill skyrocket and their water get turned into f***ing sludge soup. This is so far the biggest public goat-seeing from the data center epidemic.
Chapter 1, K-Shaped Sadness. Unfortunately, our protests fall on deaf ears since we are no longer the customers or even the people of this country. It's now run by the rich for the rich. Why sell to a bunch of middle-class Americans for a few bucks each when you can just sell a multi-billion-dollar pay package to another corporation? That's what these losers at the top started realizing as they traded away their humanity for short-term greed. Nothing about that is free market. This isn't me complaining about capitalism, it's me complaining about the endgame state of it. I don't mind a free market when it works. Doesn't really work anymore. I mean, let's just take a look so we're not just talking anecdotally. That's why these loser power companies don't care about powering 50,000 homes when they can get more cash flow by powering a single data center that's owned by a billionaire. It's also why Micron stopped selling RAM to consumers when they realized that they could just make more money selling to AI data centers. And when one of the 3 largest suppliers of RAM suddenly leaves the market, of course us consumers are the ones who get screwed. Everything uses RAM now, not just computers. Everyone's phone that they hold, car infotainment systems, and even fucking fridges, which is yet another reason why prices skyrocketed for every consumer good this year. It's always something new that comes up. They promise it's just a temporary price correction for unpredictable world circumstances. They said this with COVID, they said this with the chip shortage, they said this with tariffs, and now they've said this with the RAM shortage. I'm getting tired of these temporarily permanent price increases, boss. When are they ever going back down, or are they just gonna keep going back up? Speaking of small businesses, they're still suffering greatly from the constant tariffs, massive shifts in the supply chain, and also at the mercy of these power grid cum guzzlers that are called data centers. Since a lot of small businesses are sometimes run from people's houses, so if 50,000 houses are cut, that might be a couple hundred small businesses that technically got affected as well.
After nearly 4,000 people lodged objections to the project, the complaints have suddenly gone silent. That's either because everyone has changed their mind, or Utah has changed the process to where all previous complaints have been invalidated, and to lodge a new one you have to pay $15. Paywalling the complaint process to a foreign billionaire's tax-exempt data center in your backyard is probably the best encapsulation of American democracy that I've ever heard. The project will produce the thermal load equivalent to 23 atomic bombs worth of energy being dumped into the local environment every day.
We're just little pay piggies for these billionaires to push AI slop onto us. And when they learned that we weren't buying their garbage, they just started selling it to each other and pumping up the stocks and pretending this zombie of an economy is somehow still thriving. That way, the government can't claim recession and no one sounds the alarm bells. I already mentioned a lot of this in the Overworked and Underpaid epidemic, which you can check out after this video, about how the stock market is basically the same 7 asshole AI companies trading the same lump of cash to one another. Anyways, what pisses me off more is that they lie and pretend that AI taking our jobs isn't as bad as it is, and because the government refuses to sound the alarm bells because from their perspective they're not seeing recession, because from their perspective the stock market is still doing fine, you would think in the modern era of the internet these losers wouldn't lie so boldly since we can fact check them instantly. But the reason they try is because they think we're all stupid. Most billionaires, by the way, don't even see us as people. So again, to any of the temporarily embarrassed millionaires, just remember, we're on the same side, alright? And if they don't see us as people, maybe the feeling should be mutual. They may have billions of cash, but there are billions of us. A revolution doesn't sound so bad right about now.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
For legal reasons, what I'm about to say is for comedic purposes and entertainment purposes, and not to be taken literally, and I'm not encouraging any sort of behavior. I'm merely exercising my freedom of speech to express this humorous, hypothetical, theoretical situation. Having said that, hey Takeover kids, you guys could do the coolest thing right about now. You know the Scientology trend these past couple months where a bunch of young Gen Zers who usually are nuisance streamers and influencers suddenly locked in and then realized that instead of being a nuisance to minimum wage employees at Chipotle, they should instead raid a billionaire-funded cult known for brainwashing and trafficking? This trend may have slowed down and the doors may now be locked, but for every day these raids happened and every day after that those doors remain locked, the victims they can collect are reduced. So for once, unemployed nuisance behavior actually was a net positive on society. I'm proud of those guys. Tying this back to topic, most people these days aren't choosing to be unemployed out of laziness anymore. It's because they got laid off by AI from all these stupid data centers and blah, 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 blah. Look, I'm starting to have some sympathy for these lost souls and realizing that young men with no guidance aren't destructive for the sake of destruction, but rather because they feel lost and hopeless and they don't feel like there's anything meaningful they can contribute to society. So their potential starts to bottle up and explode off the top, and that's why the warehouse gets set on fire. Imagine growing up with so many hopes and dreams for the future, only to watch it shatter in a span of a few years. Therefore, I do acknowledge these unemployed MFs have pent up frustration and feel like the world is falling apart. But I want to negotiate with you guys. Instead of setting it on fire just to feel a bit of warmth, why not still give your life meaning? Make a stand. Start a revolution, with some revolution per minute even. You all could go on the most insane redemption arc in recent online history and get famous for it if you just do this theoretical, hypothetical suggestion. Remember, legally, I do not condone this. I'm not encouraging this behavior. It's just hypothetical, guys. So just listen to me for a bit. You know, I'm calling a truce. Look at how the internet united together to cheer on those Scientology speedrunners. No one labeled those guys the villains. In fact, a lot of people saw them as heroes. You want attention? You want to do donuts? You want to slide around? You want to wave flags? You want to be known? You want your name in lights? You want people to cheer you on and even be respected? Then stop blocking public intersections and start hypothetically fucking with mega corporations. Wake the fuck up, samurai. You guys clearly have the ability to organize not just tens of people like the Scientology speedrunners, you guys can summon forth hundreds of people. If city council protests aren't enough, then what about going for their wallets instead? Just like how Scientology closing their doors was still a net positive and a de facto win, every day these data centers can't make money because they're being occupied by public nuisance activities brings us a step closer to dissuading further construction by ruining current profits. After all, they are measured on a quarterly earnings sheet, aka every 3 months. Y'all Takeover kids have been blocking intersections in the hundreds for years now. Surely a few months isn't too much to ask for, right? Just choose a different just move from an intersection to theoretically a data center parking lot. Theoretically, not encouraging this. It's all in theory, guys. We're all just hypothetically speaking. Hell, those Scientology speedrunners, fuck it, you guys are recruited too. You guys want to look for the next trend? You're wondering what the next trend is? We genuinely can be on the verge of the next big internet trend right here. If people continue to protest, storm and hypothetically storm into and theoretically mess with these MFs who are moving into our town and making us pay for it, then a revolution could be on the way. Again, I legally do not condone or encourage these activities. It's all alleged, all right? It's all imagination. It's all hypothetical. It's not a real suggestion, and I'm merely discussing it for the sake of humor and comedic effect. I'll look the other way. I might even crack a smile. I might be a little proud, all right? But I don't actually condone it, all right? For legal reasons, all right? Unk's got to make the bread still here on YouTube. Now, I do want a brief glimpse of Hopium as our final chapter, so you can finish your meal with some happy thoughts, or finish your set in peace, unless you're like motivated by anger, in which case maybe these rants actually do help you hit your PRs. And I guess some people do listen to podcasts while working out, so I guess that makes sense, and I'm honored to be helping you either hit maintenance or hit your PR. And if you're enjoying this epidemic slop so far, then make sure to like this video and subscribe for more weekly content. Now on to the final chapter.
Some people might find it hard to understand how Delcia Bear can turn away a $26 million offer to buy some of her land until you spend a little time with her walking the dirt road she grew up on and in the house her daddy built.
Chapter 3. Stand Your Ground. Thankfully, we still have farmers like this amazing woman in Kentucky named Ida Huddleston, who refused to sell her land. Even when offered $27 million for a data center to be built on it, she rejected that offer. That sum of cash, by the way, is not as impressive as you think when you consider the billions that these corporations have access to and the insane hundreds of millions of revenue they seek to reap using her land in just a time span of a few years. It's a pathetic offer when you look at it in that perspective, and anyone daring to sell out should at least have a sense of dignity to see how you're still losing and you're being taken advantage of, even if you do take $27 million.
I said, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. But I do feel sorry for everybody around us.
The data center would be located here at Big Pond Pike. It would create 400 full-time positions along with more than 1,500 construction jobs.
Jobs would go, they would become, if not our largest employer, definitely top 3.
Delcia's response?
My guess is you won't have over 50 and they won't even be there at this building when it's said and done.
They call us old stupid farmers, but we're not. We know whenever our food is disappearing, our lands are disappearing, and we don't have any water. And poison, we know we've had it.
It's her home, her farm, but also her community, and she calls all this priceless. You can't put a price on these experiences. Love and connection is generally one of those things you can't put a cash sum on. But these lizard billionaires can never grasp this concept because they never had a loving mother growing up. Meanwhile, Ida Huddleston alone stopped a massive snowball effect on her town. Because the data center won't be built, her farm remains prosperous. Her town will continue to have locally grown food at affordable prices, and they're not going to suffer higher water and electricity bills as a result of these data centers. That's generally the biggest tragedy of putting these in small town America where farms used to be. These data centers aren't just starving them figuratively of resources, but also literally of food. This hits close to my heart since I grew up in a small town of 4,000 people in bumfuck nowhere, Indiana. Even when I revisit there occasionally, I'm shocked to see how much a single dollar bill or even $5 can still buy at a farmer's market. When these tech bros and billionaire CEOs start dumping massive data centers onto these countrysides, they destroy the local economy and sense of community. They're like an invasive species killing out the local population of fauna, as their selfish sense of greed cannot comprehend the multi-generational community that is built in most of these rural American towns. It's tragic, but thankfully there are more Idas by the day who legally stand her ground. She didn't have a for sale sign. She's not obligated to give it over. Of the 1,600 data centers planned for construction, here's a bit more hopium for all of y'all. Most of them are actually floating in limbo, a whopping almost half of them in fact.
Reports have indicated that over half of the sites that were supposed to be open this year have either been delayed or outright canceled. Logically, it's very difficult for both of those things to be true at the same time. And then there's the question of how they plan to power all of this given the current state of everything.
Nearly half of the U.S. data centers planned for 2026 are reportedly expected to be delayed.
Pushback from communities who say they don't want data centers in their backyards.
10 natural gas plants serving this one single data center.
Excess demand kind of being soaked up by data centers.
And the other reason is because more farmers and more people are becoming aware of data centers and their negative impacts in their local community, and as a result, either start rejecting these offers, which means companies have to replan, refine a new location, remeasure out the square miles and blah, 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 and who knows, they might get rejected in that new location. And even if they do get the location, locals now start showing up and start protesting against them. Now the problem is, it only takes one corrupt mayor to undo all the amazing citizens who rejected selling their land to a data center. And you can make a difference by even just showing up to city council meetings or telling your local government body officials to vote against corrupt losers.
However, I would like to highlight a successful one that has recently unfolded, where recently in Missouri, the council that pushed through a data center initiative, all of them got voted out in a landslide defeat, and now they're setting their sights on the mayor who allowed this to happen as well. This is exactly how it should be. If you are not going to actually represent the people in your community, if you are going to go against their interest in order for your own greed and exploitation, you lose your job.
Which is why I still admire the Killdozer incident so much, because man, some small town mayors can still be on some shit, which is why we need to make this known. We should keep up the protest, keep vocalizing your stance, and if you are someone who owns land, especially if you have family who has farmland, let them know not to be a sellout to these data centers, and they're not nearly giving you as much as they should be anyways. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to like this video and share it to your local community and let it be known that we can make a difference. There can be more Ida Huddlestons out there. Subscribe for more weekly epidemic slop, and I'll see y'all next time. Bladed Angel out.